Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with a really cool new series on Signum. Yes, Signum classics. Sturm und Drang. Here's volume 1. There are 3 out so far. I don't know how far it's going to go or if it's just 3, but if it is, it's pretty terrific. It's a wonderful concept. It's a concept that works. Why? Because it's a musical concept. Oh, yay! You know, a recording of music that has a musical concept. The concept is the Sturm und Drang period in classical music, which lasted from the 1760s to maybe the early 1770s or thereabouts. It was inspired by the literary trend, which actually was maybe a tad earlier, perhaps. You know, Sturm und Drang is like Goethe's The Sorrows of Young Werther. You know, and it's all about angst and emotionalism and hysteria and anxiety and tension. And it did wonderful things for music. All of those things really give music a certain jolt of electricity. And we know the Sturm und Drang period from Haydn's Sturm und Drang symphonies, which are the feature here. Of course, Haydn didn't call them that. They were just a series of works that were extraordinarily emotionally agitated and also extraordinarily experimental formally. The things went hand in hand. But most composers of the period, a lot of them were affected by this movement and by Haydn's works in minor keys because they were so extraordinary. And so they found lots of imitators or, people who were contemporaneously doing the same thing. So what do we get? Well, each of these is a program of vocal and instrumental music featuring the Mozartists under Ian Page, their conductor. Now, the Mozartists are a branch of something called classical opera, which is a period instrument group that's doing like Mozart's early operas and other things for now, and other stuff, music by Mozart and his contemporaries, by the year by year. It's a whole big project thing that I don't quite understand and I don't really care, but it's talked about in the booklet, which has excellent notes, by the way, by Ian Page, the conductor. He's a very, very intelligent guy, and he writes quite well. So the Mozartist is not your usual pint-sized, pathetic period instrument Tempest in a Teapot group. Thank God. I mean, it was horrifying to even consider it. But I can tell you who's in here. And it's a reasonably sized ensemble, thank God, because this is big music. It's gesturally large and emotionally grandiose, and it needs to have, certain large number of people playing it to make its proper impact, have the right scheme of contrasts. Now, let me see it. I had it here somewhere. I'll find them. Wait a minute. Let me get the fingers here. Sturm und Drang, Volume 1. So this is music by Gluck, Jommelli, Hayden, Beck, and Traetta. And these are interesting people, well worth getting to know. Here we have it. Violins, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 firsts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 seconds, 4 violas, 3 cellos, 3 double basses, not your usual 2/3 of a double bass, whatever that is, half a cello, and all the other people who you need. In this case, 2 oboes, 2 bassoons, 2 horns, 2 trumpets, trombone, and harpsichord. They do all the stuff with harpsichord continuo, but it's not an obnoxious harpsichord continuo, so it's tolerable. I would prefer, of course, to hear my Haydn and other stuff without it, but the opera stuff clearly requires it, so it's okay. It's really okay. So what's in Volume 1? This first program, which is splendidly recorded, and oh my goodness, do these people play? It's wonderful. But we'll talk about that in a moment too. We start with Gluck, the final scene from Don Juan, the ballet, which is the Dance of the Furies from Orpheus and Eurydice. And although it has the prelude before you get to that, which is in the ballet, but not in the opera, this is the only misfire in the program. It's not that the performance isn't very good. It is. It's that they add this sort of wind machine sound effect going through it, which is just so totally pointless. If you want to do something, then wait until the music stops, because, it comes to this huge dissonant climax. There's a big long pause, and then the descent to hell, and it goes down to the end. Well, in that big pause, you can do what Toscanini does. You have a big bass drum roll and a tam-tam crash. really, there ought to be a tam-tam crash, of course. Something has to happen there where the earth opens and the dawn gets sucked down. So you put in some percussive thing, whatever it is, and you're in business. But to have this wind machine blowing through the whole thing was silly, terrible. After that, we get Jommelli, the opera Ombre che tacite che sede from Fetante. You don't need to know what it is. All you need to know is that they have engaged the services of a first-class soprano. Her name is Chiara Skerath. And boy, can she sing. She has a beautiful, beautiful voice. So she sings that. That's in a major key because there's contrast here. It's not all just, more of the same. Then you've got a Haydn aria from his earliest extant opera, La Canterina, which is a comic opera, but it has one of those fake opera seria arias where the mannerisms of opera seria are exaggerated and parodied to some extent. It's only 2 minutes long. The most famous example of that, of course, is Come Scolio in Così fan tutte, with its wide leaps and ferocious, coloratura and whatnot. So it's lovely. And Jommelli is another composer who's a very, very interesting guy, worth getting to know. He's a note lover. He's kind of like Richard Straussy in some respects. He writes big, long, interesting melodies with wide arcs of lyrical effusion or effusiveness, effusivity, effusiosity. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of it, and it's beautiful, and she sings it absolutely beautifully. And then there's this Haydn thing, like I just mentioned. So you've got Jommelli, then you've got Haydn, and then you've got the Franz Ignaz Beck Symphony in G minor, Opus 3, number 3. Beck is the real deal. He was a very fine composer from that mid-classical period. And this G minor symphony is ferocious, and they play it ferociously. Wow. They really go for the jugular. Not the way, like Musica Antigua con il Giardino Armonico goes for the jugular by like uglifying things. Here, they have enough instruments, like strings, to be able to create a big, meaty weight of tone and really dig into the music. And they can dig into it without uglifying the whole thing. And that's really terrific. It's a wonderful work. I mean, you love it. Then we've got Tommaso Traetta. Now, Traetta was a very, very interesting composer as well. First of all, he's a vibratist. He notates vibrato in his scores. Yeah, great. I have a whole slew of them on microfilm from the Royal Library in Lisbon or something like that. And I was looking at them for decades when I was researching vibrato and performance practice. And he uses the word vibrato, which is very, very rare in the 1760s and 70s. Anyway, Traetta was almost a proto-Gluck in that his operas feature, his later ones anyway, long tracks of extended music without secco recitative, and they're very, very rich instrumentally. Beautiful, beautiful works. And here we have Crudel, Ahimè, che fate, which is, of course, Cruel One, Oh, damn, what's going on? From Sophonisba. That's interesting. And then we have Sophonisba, che aspetti, from Sophonisba. Yeah, it's lots of fun. It's just wonderful music. And he's a guy you're really going to enjoy getting to know, even from these small arias. They're like 4 or 5 minutes long. They're not that tiny. And then it all wraps up with Haydn Symphony number 49, La Passione, the greatest of his Sonata da Chiesa symphonies. That is, symphonies that begin with a full-fledged adagio, slow movement, beautiful, dark, moody work with insane allegros. If there's a difference between someone like Beck and someone like Haydn, the difference is largely, I think, that Haydn is more economical in his use of material and tends to get more out of it developmentally, because Haydn is just such a developmental guy, whereas other composers of the period tend to pack their music with more material, some of which they use and some of which they don't. But Beck is really, he's pretty intense too. Anyway, so here it is. Sturm und Drang, Volume 1, with the Mozartists under Chiara Skerath, soprano, under Ian Page. Really, really fine conducting, exciting playing, passionate, full of drive, big in scope and scale, not overblown, not bombastic. It sounds like the music should sound. with a full range of emotion and intensity of expression. It's really, really quite lovely. So I am going to enjoy introducing you to this series, and I recommend it very highly. And you can stream it, by the way, because I have it on my iPhone, and I have played it multiple times going back and forth to work, and I've enjoyed it enormously. It sounds really good on headphones, actually, on earphones, iPads, iBuds, iBud things, whatever they're called. So keep on listening, friends. Thank you so much for joining me. Take care.